coming on the air with the first pictures of former American prisoners returning to U.S. soil after being held in Russia. You see Paul Whelan there shaking the hands with President Biden. He was wrongly imprisoned in Russia for years. His family members there to greet him, along with Vice President Kamala Harris. You see him shaking her hand. They are part of the welcoming committee at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. The motorcade arrived a short time ago. There is a group of about 20 friends and family members greeting this plane. You see Paul Whelan looking into the eyes of Vice President Kamala Harris, talking about this landing. As you know, this is completing the historic multinational prisoner exchange between the U.S., Russia, and 4 other countries. You see Paul Whelan hugging the president and now the vice president. That plane, which you see there on the tarmac, carrying Paul Whelan, as well as journalist Evan Gershkovich, who works for the Wall Street Journal. Paul Whelan now hugging family members. You hear a buzz cheering. There's the Wall Street Journal reporter. That's Paul Whelan's sister greeting him on the tarmac. We just saw Evan Gershkovich hug Kamala Harris, shaking the president's hand, giving him an embrace as well. He was in prison for 491 days. And I want to go now to Jay O'Brien, who's there on the tarmac. Jay, paint a picture for us of this emotional homecoming. Clearly, there are friends, relatives, and colleagues at the Wall Street Journal there to greet Evan. Jay?
Juju, a silence fell over the press and the others here as you saw that plane coming in. It was the only plane in the sky. It was the only light in the sky. And then as Paul Whelan stepped off the aircraft, it was only fitting. He is the one of these 3 detainees who had been imprisoned in Russia the longest. He stepped off the aircraft just behind me, and this moment is still playing out. He hugged President Biden, he hugged Vice President Harris, and then he went to his sister. This cheer that just erupted, you might be able to hear it, Juju. That is from, oh, he's picking her up. That is Evan Gershkovich picking up what I believe to be his sister, or no, his mother Ella. His mother Ella, the Wall Street Journal has put out a long piece that details everything that she went through, specifically his father as well. She was buttonholing diplomats at dinners by herself. She was a one-woman negotiating machine. She went to Russia with his father. She met, the Wall Street Journal reports, with his interrogators in Russia. She fought tirelessly to bring her son home, and the image you just saw was him pick her up in joy.
It's quite emotional, Jay. What we're now seeing is President Biden greeting the Russian-American journalist Alsu Kumarsheva. She has just descended from the stairs, is now talking to the Vice President, Kamala Harris, presumably talking about this long journey to freedom. They are being met by family members, encouraged to do so as she runs across to greet her family. It's an emotional scene on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews. Jay, I know that you started talking about the diplomatic efforts, but also the quiet efforts and the not so quiet efforts of family members to keep their loved ones in the news and to keep their imprisonment a priority for this administration.
And the strength it took to do that and endure what these families have gone through. Just very quickly, Juju, you see still Alsu Kurmasheva hugging her family, her daughter there in the gray shirt. Her daughter turns 13 years old tomorrow. Her daughter, Miriam, she was the one that President Biden sang happy birthday to at that event earlier today. An emotionally fraught experience for them. You see Elizabeth Whelan on the tarmac behind me as well. She is Paul Whelan's sister. President Biden joked earlier, to your point about families demonstrating strength, that she practically lived in the Oval Office for the past few years, the near 6 years that Paul Whelan has been imprisoned, trying to advocate for her brother's release. I talked to a source close to these negotiations who said that Elizabeth Whelan was a pit bull, constantly holding this administration and other administrations to account, advocating for her brother, and doing it all while undergoing the tumult of her brother not being here.